Are we live? Yay, we're live. Awesome. I'm so excited to be here today because I am bringing some of my favorite people, one of my favorite people, my best boo, Jen Moore of Modern Medicine Lady and the Empathic Mastery Empire, because that's what it's going to be. And I'm really, yep. And there's the book. Some of you have gotten that book sent to you by me because I bought about 50 copies when Jen launched it last year. But Jen and I are over here today. I wanted to share, I saw something that Jen was doing and I wanted to share it with everyone because the work that Jen is doing has impacted me so profoundly. And so I want to open with a little story to start with. And this is back from when, this is just kind of to illustrate one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this to you all today. This is probably from about 5 years. Oh no, I was still in New York. So this was like 8 or 9 years ago, maybe.
A long time
A
ago.
really long time ago. And I think that Jen had just started working on, wait, it's always hard to know which way the camera. Okay. This this sapphire, I think, was part of what Jen, oh my goodness, that's so annoying. It's like backwards. Okay.
Yeah,
Sapphire, this arm,
that would have been almost like
10.
probably, well, we met like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of
Right after that.
imagining it was probably like 8.5, 9 years ago that this happened.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
So here's what was happening. Jen was touching. So this entire arm is a spell is a spell of abundance. And Jen was starting with the golden cuff and the sapphire. And I was in her chair. I had come up from New York City and to do a sitting with Jen. And I was telling her just this story that I thought was really funny about this cute guy that had asked me out on a date. And I was telling her a story about us being at this really nice restaurant and us arguing about who was going to pay because he wanted to pay and I was arguing for paying my own share. And I just thought it was a funny story that I was kind of sharing with Jen. And Jen, I remember this so distinctly. You put down your machine, you covered this with your hand, and you said, hang on a minute. We're actually putting under your skin this spell it gives me chills even now. We're injecting under your skin this spell for abundance, the abundance that you want to create in the world. And you're telling me that you are so shut down to receiving that you can't even let a man who asked you out to dinner pay the bill. And you were like, are you able to see how you're like, we can do anything we want and it's not going to work if you can't even accept someone buying you dinner. And you were like, we need to stop right now and work on this. And I hadn't been able to see it. And we stopped and you did this whole like round of EFT for me, tapping. And that was like the beginning. I mean, that visit to Maine was really the beginning of so many things changing. Do you remember that? Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I guess what I would say is, there's that saying that you've quoted me on, and I don't know where I heard it first, but you can't read the label from the inside of the jar. Mm-hmm. And to me, what's so fascinating are the ways that we so frequently have, as Carolyn Elliott talks about it, divided will. And where there's the part of us that wants something and really sincerely believes that that's what we want. But then there are these other sort of, a lot of times, unconscious operating procedures, like stuff that's literally encoded in our operating system that is going to stop us at every single turn. And as long as those things are sabotaging us and are operating underneath, kind of under the hood, no amount of affirmations, no amount of strategy, no amount of magical spells is gonna do it, because we are working at cross purposes. And what I love about this story is that for me, it was like, oh my God, like it was so obvious. And yet for you, it didn't even occur to you that fighting over the check when you're trying to attract abundance, it was somehow connected to your ability to let in more abundance and grace in your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so true. It was such a, I will never forget that moment where I all of a sudden had a bird's eye view, not just a bird's eye view, but also that there was a tool that we could use to unblock that and to
Yeah.
debug the system. And without it, it was such a perfect metaphor because without it, I could tattoo like dollar signs across my face and it wouldn't make a difference because of the
Mm-mm.
bugs in the operating system. So that's my favorite story to introduce, one of the many pieces of your genius and your brilliance. But do we want to go back a second and just talk about can you just tell us what is EFT and tapping, and why should women that are in these communities who are clearly working so hard to do the work that they love, have an impact, make the money, and really, really just be able to get out of their own ways? Why should these women care about
Care
this
about it.
tool?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess, so first off, I'll just respond just really briefly in saying, in the more than 30 years that I've been in the energy healing and transformational and an intuitive world, in the world of woo and magic, I have never, ever found a more effective tool for changing things and shifting things than EFT. And what I love about it, so EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And it is, some people, the simple way to describe it would be like it's an emotional mental form of acupuncture or acupressure, where we basically use our fingertips to place, either to tap or place light pressure on basically endpoints of acupressure or acupuncture meridians to reboot our nervous system and to deal with that tricky little part of our brain called the amygdala, which controls our fight or flight mechanism. And a lot of times, especially in modern society, what has happened to us is that we are in a state of perpetual distress, but we don't have any of the, it used to be that, like thousands of years ago, you're getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger or a woolly mammoth, and all of your adrenaline courses up, your entire nervous system gets all jacked, and the cortisol gives you, and the adrenaline gives you what you need to run and get out of the way. And by the time you are out of harm's way, you will have burned off all of those stress hormones to deal with it. And so we as a species were designed to use our stress hormones to get ourselves out of trouble, to either fight or flee. The problem is that nowadays we're living in a world where the stress is coming from things like reading a nasty post on Facebook or watching a politician who shall remain nameless spewing his diarrhea mouth on national television. And it brings up the energy within us, but there's no mechanism for shaking it off. So what has happened is that many of us are in these states of perpetual like stress, and instead of shaking off or rebooting our system, we keep on getting it re-stimulated. And EFT is a tool that allows us to stop that cycle of fight or flight response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So important.
So important.
And I've also from someone who has been such a recipient of your work with EFT. One of the things that I've noticed is that it also works just as a tool to understand, like, it's not even, I mean, obviously it's stopping it, but like, I didn't even realize that I was blocking the thing that I was sitting there in your chair, had traveled from New York City to create. I didn't even have a perspective on it. So I know that often in the private work that I've done with you, just understanding where the energy is blocked and where I'm blocking the energy and seeing it from a perspective is so amazingly helpful, not just being able to understand what's happening, but to be able to see it sometimes for the first time ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that's so wonderful about EFT is that, it sort of on a scientific level, the mechanism of it is that it's rebooting the amygdala and resetting our nervous system. But what I love about it, and the reason why I pivoted my entire life to become an EFT trainer and a mentor for highly sensitive empathic women and teaching them to use EFT as a tool, is because what is so spectacular about it is that you can pretty much use it for nearly anything. The other day, actually yesterday, and I just went live this morning, one of our mutual boos, Michelle and I, just did a tapping video for the responses or our body's reaction to the COVID vaccine. Because Michelle had just done had just gotten her COVID vaccine. And she was feeling feverish, and she had a headache, and she was feeling tired and brain foggy and all these things. So I reached out to Michelle and I was like, hey, will you be my guinea pig and do a demo video with me? And within a half hour, she went from a 10 with a headache, a 6 with a sore arm, an 8 with fatigue and brain fog, and all of it was down to ones and zeros within 30 minutes. And so it can be used for physical health issues or physical sensations that are going on in our body. It can be used for places where something is under the hood that we don't even know is affecting us, like our ability to take in and feel worthy of receiving. It can also be used for the triggers where there's things like some kind of an event happened to us, and every single time we go anywhere near anything that remotely resembles it, we're reliving that experience, and we're pulling the emergency brakes. And a lot of times as human beings, we've got one foot on the accelerator, one foot on the emergency brake. And then we're wondering, why are we getting nowhere? And so it can be used for physical issues. It can be used for mental issues in terms of belief systems. It can be used for things that we don't even know are there. It can be used for difficult past events and clearing those kinds of things. It can be used for food cravings. It can be used for animal issues. I'm going to have to tap sometime soon because I have new kittens who are jumping on everything. And so what I love about it, and the reason why I want it to be available for people, is because I've yet to meet somebody who doesn't have something that gets in their way or something that gets them stuck. And EFT not only allows us to shift it, it also allows us to understand it, because the process allows us to engage with our stuff. And that's one of the things I also love about it, is that it is a DIY tool, in the sense that you can try this at home. You can do this for yourself. You don't have to go and find some big foo-foo who knows the stuff better than you do and who's going to basically fix you. EFT is fundamentally about showing up for ourselves, being present with ourselves, exploring the threads of what's really going on, and a lot of times having revelations about things that we didn't even know.
Yeah. I love that piece, the self-empowerment piece, the piece, around it's not just something that you have to depend on someone else for. You can actually learn to do it all by yourself, for yourself, which is so amazing and just such a gift. I mean, it just makes it such a gift.
Such an incredible gift. And, EFT has been found with some of the people who are in the clinical world. There's been, at this point, I believe, 20 studies around EFT specifically for addressing PTSD and working with veterans. And so the science is catching up with it. And basically, people are really seeing what a versatile tool it is. But unlike some other tools like EMDR, where you have to go see a professional and the procedure is done with a professional, EFT is a tool can be used with a practitioner like me for the you can't read the label from the inside of the jar stuff, but it can also be used by yourself for self-soothing and for calming and containing, as well as it can be really helpful for just getting you out of your own way if you're like, you got something to do. Like I did some tapping last year when it was time to start crunching numbers for taxes because I didn't want to do it.
I remember.
Yeah. And just tapping on the I didn't want to do it, within a few rounds of tapping, allowed me to get out of my own way enough that I was able to move forward until I hit another wall
Yeah.
and discovered what was kind of underneath that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know that my people, and we're broadcasting this mostly in my communities, you know that my people are really eager to do the thing that they love and get out in the world and have an impact and be able to make a really great income doing the things that they love. How can EFT generate, how does it work with like more money, freedom, business success? How does it tie in? Can you give us some lowdown on that?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of reasons why, as entrepreneurial women, we block money. And so, one of the very first things that a lot of people come up against is even feeling worthy of asking for money, even feeling worthy of charging, and coming up against those parts of ourselves that are just like, oh my God, I'm going to ask for $300 an hour. I can't possibly do that. Or I'm thinking of charging like $10,000 for this program. Who would ever pay for it? And who do I think I am? These are things I've heard for so many people. So if we have an underlying belief that feels icky and incongruous and out of alignment with our pricing, then what's going to happen is as soon as we start to throw ourselves out into the world, people are going to feel that incongruity. They may not consciously recognize it, but they can
100%.
feel it.
Yep.
And, it's interesting because I had a conversation a little while ago with somebody who basically was like, hey, could you give me a discount? And I'm like, no, I can't give you a discount. And it's sort of like there would have been a time in my life where I would have struggled mightily, where I would have just been like, who do you think you are to not give this away for free? And I have gotten to a place where I can just comfortably say, no, it's not the way it works. It's like I have an overhead. I need to charge this. And so in terms of money, what I find is that there's that beginning thing of just feeling worthy of even asking for money, feeling comfortable with setting different prices, with changing our prices. But then there's also a whole bunch of things under the hood for highly sensitive, empathic women that deeply affect our ability to sustain a business. And I'll let you in on a little secret, or a little hint, which is that it all comes down to boundaries, that it all comes down to energetic safety and being able to protect ourselves. It also has a lot to do with limiting beliefs or misaligned operating systems. So like, for example, I have recall of past lives where I got to live cloistered in the temples or in the convents. And all I had to do was like get up, eat my oatmeal, and then go spend the day doing my job. And then at the end of the day, prayers, food, and sleep. I didn't have anything to do with who was coming to me or how how money was getting collected. And I really had a big block about the fact that I couldn't just do my work and that I had to be involved in the money side of it and I had to be involved in the marketing side of it.
Yeah.
But I also had a big thing about the distinction between basically like charity and nonprofit that is being run, or an infrastructure that's being run by something different than me, and being a human being running a for-profit business in this lifetime, because I don't have the infrastructure and I don't have anybody going to cocktail parties with fancy schmancy people and raising money for me. And so what I have found is that there are so many layers to what inhibits us and stops us and blocks us from being able to create a thriving business. And the money and the worthiness and the belief system is one part of it, but then there's also if we are not maintaining really good energetic, spiritual, and emotional hygiene as practitioners or coaches or entrepreneurs, we are going to give too much. We are going to deplete ourselves. We are going to engage in relationships or take on clients that we have no right to be taking on, and would have just been like walk on by if we were in a healthier place. And as a result, what ends up happening is we take hit after hit until we start to become so exhausted, so overwhelmed, so depleted, and often so sort of soured to the process that our business really starts to suffer from it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't even. I'm just like, yes, in my head, every single sentence. Yeah. I mean, there is such power in having the hygiene and the boundaries and the practice to say no. I got so excited a week or two ago. This woman came back to me who's been in my face again and again. I want to work with you. No, I don't. Nope, I'm done. And just to be like, no, nope, no, sorry.
No.
So good.
So good.
Yeah.
And I've just had an opportunity to say no a couple times myself recently. One was for a podcast interview where I got on the meet and greet and I talked with this woman and the fit was just like, really? And I kept noticing like the style was just wrong. She wasn't hearing me. She kept trying to control me. And at the end of it, she's like, well, I know you need to go because you probably want to go watch Shark Tank. And I'm just like, no, actually, I'm going to go and be with my prayer group and pray for the next hour. But hey, knock yourself out. Go watch Mark Cuban, and at first I was like, maybe I can find a way to make this work. And then I prayed on it and I'm like, no, I do not belong here. This is a misaligned fit. And if there was a time in my life where my boundaries were not as solid or I didn't feel as comfortable saying no, I would have bent over backwards and pretzeled myself.
Yes.
And I would have ended up spending hours and hours and hours doing the prep work she was asking for, because she was asking for like a timeline of every single pivotal bullet point moment in my life. Like it was crazy what she wanted. And so I just wrote an email and I said, thank you, but no, thank you. And even with this upcoming EFT training, I had 3 people come through at the last minute for the last spot. One person was like, hey, I'm in another country and this time is really bad for me. Can I just watch the videos? And I'm like, no, you can't just watch the videos. The next person was like, hey, I'm really thinking about doing this and I've got this other thing coming up that's really a financial hardship. And I'm like, I'll be teaching the training in autumn, and when that, and I'll keep you posted. Yeah. And then it was the third person who was completely aligned, who was like, I am ready to I'm ready to hand over my cold hard cash. I know I want to do this. Let's make it happen. And if I had wavered, if I had been like, sure, you can watch the videos, or sure, here's a scholarship for you since you've got this other financial commitment, I would have brought in a misaligned student that probably would have thrown a wrench into the works because I wasn't respecting the boundaries.
Yep, 100%. So you just mentioned the training. In the next 4 minutes, can you tell us about the training and also tell us why, if folks have dabbled with EFT or done a couple follow-along videos and it hasn't worked, can you connect the training and that for us?
Absolutely. So I guess what I want to say is, for anybody who's tried EFT and found like, I tried it, what's the big deal about it? Especially if you've tried tap along videos and, it's like you're using another person's set of words and you're following along, like you're like, yeah, I think that's close to what I'm feeling. The problem with tap along videos, and a lot of people are introduced to tapping, which is not quite the same as EFT. Tapping is the umbrella word for the whole kind of idea. EFT are very precise, very specific techniques that are used for really getting to the root of the problem or the issue and releasing it. And so the thing is that a lot of times the reason something doesn't work is because people have not been taught the nuances of how to work really precisely and really specifically. So an EFT training with somebody like me, who's a master trainer for EFT International, is a training that has a set of standards that are very impeccable and very clear, that teach you how to work with these tools in a very specific and very effective way. And the reason why I think that doing this training is so powerful for people is it's amazing if you want to take this tool and actually incorporate it or include it in your professional toolbox. It's also a really good way to learn how to work with it and understand the theory, so that as an individual, if you're using this tool on a regular basis for yourself, you get it. Because what I have found is that I have certain clients, VIP clients I've been working with for years, who would not necessarily ever consider being an EFT practitioner, but who have benefited greatly by doing the training because they understand what we're doing in a way that allows them to participate more actively in the process. And then the third reason why, well, there's two more reasons why I just think a training is really fantastic. Especially in EFT International training, is that it's a way to connect with other enthusiasts. It's a way to be rolled into the community, and it's a way to start exchanging sessions with other people who are dedicated to doing EFT in a really, really impeccable way. Because there is no, let you in on not necessarily a secret, but there's no regulation in the world of tapping in EFT. Anybody can put up a shingle and say they're a tapper. And to be honest with you, even within sort of the broader entrepreneurial community, I see a lot of websites with people who claim to tap who have no freaking credentials and who do not, and who say nothing about where they trained, what they have, where they've gotten this. And because there's no credentialing, there's no set of standards for what this is. It's kind of the Wild West. EFT International is an organization that is deeply committed to impeccability and accountability. And so when somebody commits to training with EFT International, accrediting and certifying through us, the thing is, you are showing your due diligence and you are showing your commitment to the craft of EFT, and in a way that you're saying, I care about learning how to do this right. And I care about showing that I'm willing to be accountable to an organization and to other people and to be held to the same set of standards that other people have. Yeah. And so that for me is a really big part of it. So there's, the benefit of just understanding it, the benefits of learning how to do this professionally, the benefit of connecting with other people who are really committed to doing it well, and the benefit of showing you're really devoted to EFT from a place of mastery and excellence, and not just taking some random Udemy course and calling yourself a practitioner.
Yeah. So well put. So well put. And for folks watching, I cannot recommend doing this with Jen more highly. I don't have words to recommend it any more highly. It's just, your containers are impeccable and they are expert level, and you are an absolute master at this. So for folks who are interested, just even in whether it's this course or hearing more about what you're doing or getting your support, how can they best smoke signal you?
So the best ways to smoke signal me are head on over. So if you want to learn a little bit more about doing an EFT training with me, head on over to EFTinstruction.com. Now, I will tell you that at this point in time, the EFT training that is just starting on Saturday is booked. It's completely full. Woohoo! We've got an amazing set of women, and I am starting to already rolling up for or thinking about a fall training. And there are a number of people where it was like, this time wasn't quite right, but the fall will probably be working. So I don't have the exact dates, but I'm looking at that. So if you go over to EFTinstruction.com, you can learn a little bit more about that. And if you want to find out about my entire world, head on over to empathicmastery.com. It will lead you into, you can take what's my empathic type quiz. You can go grab a copy of the book. You can do all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah.
So EFTinstruction.com for getting the ball rolling about being involved in an EFT training and or just learning more about EFT, and empathicmastery.com for the whole shoot and match.
Yeah. And I will say that I have not yet met a woman who should not read that book. Can you hold it up once more for us?
Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I literally bought 10 to 20 copies of this when it came out and sent it to 10 to 20 people. This is an absolute must if you are in my community. I can guarantee it. Thank you so much, Jen. I love you so much. Thank you for doing this with me.
I love you too. Thank you so much for letting me talk about it. And I just want to say that the thing about EFT is that it is so much more than, it's so much more than me. It's like, I love this tool so much, and and the miracles I've witnessed again and again and again and again and again for so many people have just inspire. I just am so grateful for it. And I just want as many people to have access to this tool as possible, because it is truly life-changing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. It changed my life. Having your support and working with you completely changed my life and was one of the most powerful tools that I had. So,
You
so happy
probably
to
would
share this.
not be in Maine if it
I
were
would
not
not be
for
in
the
Maine.
fact that we
No,
tapped. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
with my husband.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I
Okay,
love
my
you.
dear.
Folks, you
Thank
can
you so
tag
much.
Jen if you have questions in the
Yes,
comments.
please.
And thank you so much, Jen, for being here. I love you.
So much.
Mwah.
Mwah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, honey.